In the summer of 1897, the streets of San Francisco buzzed with rumors of gold. From the docks to the gambling halls, from Chinatown to Telegraph Hill, everyone was talking about one place, the Klondike. Word had it that men were pulling fortunes straight out of the ground. And for a city built on ambition and risk, those words were like fire in dry grass. A young man weaving through the crowd, worn boots, eyes sharp with hunger and hope. His name was Elias Mercer, 18 years old, lean, quick, and broke. He had no family left to speak of, no money to his name, and no real trade besides a knack for cards and survival. The gold rush wasn't just a chance for riches. It was a ticket out of nowhere. Every day, Elias watched ships bound north. Men with shiny boots and fresh gear, women clutching letters and dreams, all chasing that whisper of fortune. A steamer ticket cost $200, might as well have been $2,000. For Elias, the distance between him and the Klondike wasn't measured in miles, but in luck. That night, he found himself in a place called the Silver Lantern, a crooked saloon on the edge of the docks where sailors, drifters, and dreamers gathered to gamble away what little they had. The air stank of whiskey and desperation. Perfect place for a miracle or a mistake. The cards slid across the table like promises. Elias had played before, but never for stakes this high. The prize wasn't just gold tonight, it was a ticket. One of the players had put his steamer ticket north into the pot, bragging that Alaska was a fool's errand. Elias's heart hammered in his chest. If luck favored him, he could buy his future with nothing more than a bluff and a steady hand. Hours passed. The table thinned. In the final hand, the stranger in the long coat raised the stakes, his gold watch, his coins, and the ticket itself. Elias had barely enough to call. He hesitated, then pushed it all forward. The last card turned. The boy's heart froze, and then a flush. The room fell silent. Elias Mercer, the dock hand with nothing, had just won his way to the Klondike. He didn't know it yet, but that hand of cards had dealt him far more than a journey north. It had dealt him a destiny, one that would test every ounce of courage, cunning, and luck he possessed. And as dawn broke over the bay, Elias Mercer, gambler, dreamer, fool, held his ticket to fortune in trembling hands, ready to leave behind everything he'd ever known. Elias didn't know it yet, but the man in black wasn't done with him. In the world of gold and cards, debts weren't always paid with money. Sometimes they were paid with destiny. And so, with a single hand of poker, the poorest boy in San Francisco had bought his passage to the last great frontier, and maybe sold something far more valuable in return. Elias walking toward the fog-shrouded harbor, clutching the ticket, unaware that fate was already following his trail. The morning the North Star set sail, San Francisco felt like a city on fire, not with flames, but with fever. Klondike fever. From the wealthy investor in his pressed coat to the farmhand clutching a borrowed shovel, everyone believed fortune was waiting in the frozen north. And now Elias Mercer was one of them. He had never been on a ship before. The sound of gulls overhead, the hiss of steam, the shouted orders of deckhands. It was all new and all terrifying. But fear had no place now. He gambled everything for this chance. As the whistle blew and the ship pulled away from the wharf, San Francisco disappeared into a gray blur behind him. Ahead lay the unknown. The voyage north was chaos wrapped in steel. The lower decks were crammed with prospectors, crates, and livestock. The air stank of sweat and oil. Men swapped stories of hidden valleys of gold, of fortunes made overnight, and others of those who vanished in the snow, bones never found. Hope and fear mingled in equal measure. There was a preacher on board, Reverend Halley, gray-bearded, weary-eyed, said he was heading north not for gold, but for redemption. Then there was Nora Finn, a widow traveling alone, her late husband's claim papers tucked safely in her coat. And finally, a man named Rourke, a self-proclaimed entrepreneur with a grin too wide and a voice too smooth. He claimed to know the shortcuts to fortune, but every shortcut had a cost. Rourke pouring Elias a drink, whispering promises of easy gold. Rourke chuckling, "You got the eyes of a gambler, kid. Trust me, there's more to this game than panning rivers. Stick with me, and I'll show you how the smart men strike it rich." Elias smiled politely, but something about Rourke's confidence felt dangerous. Still, the man's words echoed the same dream that had carried Elias this far, that he could outsmart fate, just like he'd outplayed that poker table back in San Francisco. Elias leaning against the ship's railing that night, the cold biting his fingers, the sea stretching endlessly ahead. Days turned to weeks. The weather worsened, waves crashing hard against the hull. The passengers grew restless, some seasick, others scared. But for Elias, the horizon was everything, a promise that somewhere out there, beyond the fog and ice, lay a new life. One night, under a moon half hidden by clouds, Elias thought he saw a figure on the upper deck, tall, still, a shape too familiar. For a moment, his breath caught. Cassidy? But when he blinked, the figure was gone. Maybe it was only the sea playing tricks, or maybe luck had followed him north, for better or worse. The North Star churned steadily toward Alaska, carrying hundreds of souls chasing gold, glory, or salvation, and among them, one boy from San Francisco, a gambler who'd wagered everything, now sailing straight into the cold heart of destiny. The North Star docks at Skagway under gray skies. Snow clings to the mountain peaks, gulls cry overhead, and the sound of hammers and shouting fills the air. When Elias Mercer first stepped off the ship, the cold hit him like a slap. The air was sharp, metallic, the kind that burned your lungs if you breathed too deep. Before him sprawled Skagway, the last outpost of civilization before the wild. It wasn't a town so much as a fever dream. Tents, shacks, and wooden storefronts thrown together in a frenzy, everything for sale, everything at a price. The gold rush had turned this tiny port into chaos, streets clogged with prospectors, hustlers, and dreamers. Merchants shouted prices high enough to make a banker faint. $50 for a shovel, $100 for boots, $200 for a tent. But no one cared. When gold fever took hold, reason was the first casualty. Elias had never seen anything like it. Every face looked wild with purpose. Some men bragged of riches, others cursed their luck. One man staggered down the street shouting that he'd struck gold already, before collapsing drunk in the mud. Another stood on a crate, promising to sell maps to secret creeks of fortune. No one knew if he was a genius or a fraud. Probably both. Then came the sound of gunfire, a single shot, then silence. The crowd barely paused. Around here, a gunshot was just punctuation. Skagway wasn't ruled by law. It was ruled by men like Jefferson Soapy Smith, a con artist who controlled the town with charm, bribes, and a pistol on his hip. Everyone knew his name. Everyone feared his reach, Elias passing a wanted poster, Soapy Smith's grin staring back. Elias kept his head low. He had his supplies to buy and a trail to reach. But his few winnings from San Francisco vanished fast. Every merchant saw his youth and desperation and bled him dry. By the time he'd finished, his pockets were nearly empty again. Elias, sitting on a crate, exhausted, snow swirling around him. A man in a fur coat approaches. Rourke, the smooth talker from the steamer, Rourke, grinning. "Told you, kid. The North eats the unprepared. Lucky for you, I've got a deal that'll make us both rich. There's a guide leaving tomorrow. Chooses only the bold." "You in?" Elias hesitated. The promise of gold still burned in his chest, but something about Rourke's smile felt too easy, too practiced. Still, what choice did he have? The mountains loomed ahead, and fortune favored the brave or the desperate. Elias, nodding slowly, shaking Rourke's hand as snow begins to fall heavier, the wind howling down from the peaks. As night fell over Skagway, the town glowed with lantern light and greed. In every corner, deals were made, lives were gambled, and dreams were sold by the pound. And somewhere in the shadows, a familiar figure, a man in a black coat, watched from the edge of the street, a faint smile curling beneath the smoke of his cigar. Elias Mercer had reached the frontier, but the real journey was only beginning. Beyond those peaks lay the trail to the Klondike and the test of everything he thought he was. Elias and Rourke walking into the snow, lantern light fading behind them, the wilderness swallowing their silhouettes. Beyond Skagway lay the mountains, endless ridges of ice and rock that would break the body, the spirit, and sometimes the mind. They called it the Trail of 500 miles, though no man ever measured it in safety. For Elias Mercer, the climb over Chilkoot Pass was the first real test of his courage and endurance. Elias, strapping a heavy pack to his back, hands raw from hauling supplies, snow biting at his cheeks. The snow was relentless. Sleds groaned under the weight of gear, tents, food, tools. Each pound a reminder that the Klondike did not forgive weakness. One misstep could send a man tumbling hundreds of feet into a frozen ravine. Frostbite crept into fingers, toes, and noses. Hunger gnawed at bellies, and exhaustion blurred every step. Elias was not alone. Hundreds of men and women struggled upward, faces pale with cold, eyes wide with desperation and hope. Some sang quietly to keep spirits alive. Others muttered curses under their breath. The mountain was both adversary and teacher. Only those willing to endure would reach the other side. The climb was more than physical. It was a test of will. Elias learned quickly that in the North, you survived not just with strength, but with heart, compassion, and the ability to endure without losing yourself. One careless shove, one broken sled, one misstep could doom not only you, but those depending on you. For days, Elias and a small group of companions pushed through the blizzard, stopping only when night forced them to dig snow shelters, frostbite and fatigue setting in like invisible chains. Stories circulated of men who turned back too late, frozen at their tracks, their dreams buried beneath the ice. But there were moments of triumph, a cleared ridge revealing the sun glinting on distant peaks, the laughter of a man who thought he couldn't move another step, finding courage to press on. The sight of the Klondike River Valley below, a glimpse of promise beyond the struggle. Elias standing on a high ridge, wind tearing at his coat, breath visible in the icy air, the valley spread wide before him. By the time they finally descended into the Yukon Valley, Elias was no longer just a boy from San Francisco. The mountains had tested him, reshaped him, and taught him the first truth of the Klondike. Gold was only found by those willing to endure the impossible, and every ounce of hope carried a price. Ahead lay rivers, claims, and towns alive with gold fever. But Elias knew that nothing in the Klondike came easy. Not fortune, not safety, and certainly not survival. Every step forward demanded everything he had, and the mountains had only just begun to reveal the North's true face. After surviving the mountains, Elias Mercer faced the river, a ribbon of liquid gold that was as dangerous as it was essential. The Yukon carried men and dreams alike, and only those who learned to respect it would make it to the heart of the Klondike. For Elias, the river was a test unlike any he had faced before. The rapids were merciless. One wrong maneuver could smash a raft to splinters, throwing men and supplies into icy water. Frost-bitten hands gripped ropes until they bled. Every mile was a gamble, one step closer to gold or one mistake from disaster. But the river was also a teacher. Elias watched seasoned men read the currents, anticipate whirlpools, and navigate ice flows with a combination of skill and instinct. He learned that patience and observation could mean the difference between survival and death. The Klondike demanded respect, and the river demanded humility. A near-fatal moment came sooner than expected. A large ice floe slammed into their raft, tossing Elias into the freezing river. Panic surged as the current threatened to pull him under, but training, quick thinking, and the grip of his companions kept him afloat. Hands cold and numb, heart racing, he climbed back onto the raft, drenched but alive. Each day on the river blurred into the next. Long hours of paddling, constant vigilance, and fleeting moments of triumph. A salmon leaping from the water, a sunset glinting on the waves, the laughter of men who had survived another rapid. These were the glimpses of beauty amidst struggle, the small victories that kept hope alive. It wasn't just the river that tested him. The other men were a mixture of allies and rivals. Competition over claims began even before the gold was touched. Friendships were fragile, trust a precious commodity. Elias realized quickly that the journey north was as much a game of human nature as it was of survival. Yet, despite the danger, the cold, and the uncertainty, Elias felt something stirring inside, a hunger not just for gold, but for purpose, for mastery of a land that refused to be tamed. The Yukon River had become a crucible, forging determination, courage, and a deeper understanding of what it meant to chase a dream. The river of dreams was just the beginning. Ahead lay Dawson City, claims waiting to be staked, and the harsh truth that gold could change everything or destroy everything. Dawson City was everything the mountains and rivers promised and more. A boom town built overnight, a city of extremes where fortunes were made before breakfast and lost by sunset. For Elias Mercer, stepping onto the streets of Dawson was like entering a living, breathing fever dream. The town throbbed with gold fever. Prospectors bartered and brawled. Saloons overflowed with whiskey and lies, and merchants charged prices that would make any sane man flee. The very air seemed to shimmer with greed, ambition, and desperation. In Dawson, survival required more than skill with a pickaxe. It demanded cunning, courage, and a sharp eye for human nature. Elias found work quickly, washing dishes and hauling supplies at one of the waterfront saloons. It was back-breaking labor, but every coin he earned went toward staking a claim. He watched men who had arrived months before strike deals whisper secrets and vanish into the woods with pockets heavy with gold dust. Every glance, every word felt loaded with promise and danger. 'T was at night that Dawson revealed its true face. Fires flickered in tents and shacks. Shadows danced on walls, and whispers of betrayal floated through the air. Rourke, the smooth talker from the steamer, found him. "Kid," he said, "gold waits for no one. But if you play it smart, you could do better than the rest." Elias knew Rourke wasn't offering friendship. It was a deal, and the cost was unspoken. He learned quickly that in Dawson City, trust was fragile, loyalty fleeting. Men fought over nothing, stole from friends, and schemed like predators. By sunrise, Elias had secured a modest claim, a small corner of riverbank that promised hope more than wealth. It was enough to keep him in the game, but Dawson had already taught him a bitter truth. Gold could change a man, reveal the darkness within, and test the very soul of those who chased it. Dawson City nights were alive with ambition and peril, and Elias Mercer understood that the real challenge had only begun. Gold might glitter in the river, but in the streets and shadows, fortune was measured in wit, courage, and the ability to survive the madness around you. Elias Mercer's claim was modest, but it was his first real foothold in the Klondike, a small stretch of riverbank, chosen carefully where gold dust might glint like tiny suns beneath the gravel. Yet the promise of riches came hand in hand with peril. In the north, claims were sacred and violent, each patch of earth a battleground, each nugget a prize worth fighting for. The work was brutal. Hours spent swinging a pickaxe, hauling buckets of gravel, and panning for flecks of gold wore down even the strongest man. Elias learned quickly that luck alone would not bring fortune. Skill, persistence, and careful planning were essential. Every rock overturned, every pan swirled was a lesson in patience and resilience. And then a glimmer, a fleck of gold, almost too small to notice. But to Elias, it was proof that the North rewarded those who dared. His pulse quickened. Every swing of the pickaxe, every shovelful of gravel now carried a new intensity. The boy from San Francisco had found his first real treasure. Fortune, however, never comes without risk. Rival claim jumpers prowled like wolves, looking for inexperience to exploit. Elias soon realized that protecting what he had was as important as finding it. Eyes watched from the tree line, hands lingered near weapons, and whispers of schemes and theft floated through the camp. One evening, a confrontation erupted. A man tried to steal from Elias's supplies. Words turned to shoves, shoves to fists, and Elias fought like a cornered animal. The altercation left bruises, but it also left him determined. Gold demanded vigilance, and in the North, trust was a luxury few could afford. By the end of the week, Elias's claim yielded enough gold to promise more than mere survival. Yet the North had taught him a lesson beyond wealth. Ambition came at a cost. Friends could betray, strangers could steal, and the line between fortune and ruin was razor thin. Each nugget of gold carried the weight of danger, effort, and human greed. Elias Mercer, once a boy with nothing, now held tangible proof of his gamble. But as he stared at the flecks of gold in his pan, he knew the journey was far from over. In the Klondike, every victory invited challenge, and the true test of courage was not just in finding gold, but in keeping it. Elias, standing over his claim, pickaxe in hand, river glinting behind him, shadows lurking at the edge of the camp, northern lights faintly shimmering above. By the time autumn crept into the Klondike, the fever of gold had cooled, but the hunger it left behind burned hotter than ever. Elias Mercer's claim had begun to pay, small flakes of gold glinting in his pan like tiny suns. But word travels fast in a land where men are starving for fortune. And greed always finds its way back. Elias crouched in his tent, weighing gold dust by lantern light. A shadow darkens the doorway. Rourke was back. His once polished boots were torn, his coat tattered, and his charm had turned to something sharp and bitter. "You've done well for yourself, Mercer," he sneered. "Seems you forgot who showed you the way north." Elias didn't rise to the bait. "You showed me a road, Rourke. I walked it on my own." But Rourke's smile twisted. His hand hovered near his hip, where a pistol gleamed beneath his coat. The air froze between them, tight as a drawn wire. For a moment, it felt like the wilderness itself held its breath. Elias stood tall, eyes steady. "You don't want to do this," he said softly. Rourke's fingers twitched, but then his eyes faltered. Maybe it was the steadiness in Elias's voice, or the quiet in his face. Maybe it was fear, or maybe deep down, even Rourke realized what this place had already taken from them both. Rourke steps back, snow crunching underfoot. He lowers his hand, laughs once, a hollow, broken sound. "Keep your gold, kid," he muttered. "You'll see what it's worth when you've got no soul left to spend it." Then he turned and vanished into the snow, swallowed by the same wilderness that had devoured so many others. No one in the camp saw him again. Elias stood there for a long time, the echo of that laugh still hanging in the cold air. The moment had come and gone, and he was still standing. Maybe that was victory enough. In the north, mercy was rarer than gold. And that night, Elias learned that the greatest strength wasn't in taking a life, but in letting one go. Later, Elias sits by his campfire. Elias understood he'd survived more than winter. He'd survived himself. Elias, sitting alone, firelight flickering against his tired face, gold dust glittering in a small pouch beside him. By the time the river thawed, Elias Mercer was no longer the boy who'd left San Francisco. The Klondike had hardened him, but it hadn't broken him. He'd seen greed turn men to ghosts, hunger twist hope into madness. Yet somehow, through it all, he'd kept a spark alive, the part that still believed in mercy, even when the wilderness begged him to forget it. He didn't have much to show for his months in the north. A few ounces of gold may be enough to start again. But when he looked at that gold, he no longer saw fortune. He saw faces, Rourke's, pale and desperate as he vanished into the snow, and his own reflection, older, quieter, but unbroken. The camps that once roared with laughter were silent now. Most who'd come chasing dreams had left empty-handed, or not at all. The fever had burned out, and all that remained were ghosts and echoes. Elias walked among them, not as a prospector, but as a pilgrim returning home. The journey south was long and harsh, but Elias didn't rush. Each mountain he crossed, each frozen river he forded, felt different now. The land that once tested him now seemed to nod in quiet acknowledgement. He had survived it, and in some way, it had accepted him. When Elias reached the coast, the world seemed almost too wide, too loud. Men still spoke of gold, of claims, of luck. But he had learned better. Luck was nothing without purpose. Gold was nothing without soul. He boarded a small steamer bound for San Francisco, his pack light, his eyes fixed in the horizon. As the ship pushed south through gray waves, Elias thought of the poker table where it all began, of that wild gamble that sent him north. He smiled faintly. Life, he realized, was much like that game, a mix of luck and choice, risk and restraint. You never really won. You just learned when to hold and when to let go. When he finally saw the golden light of San Francisco on the horizon, Elias Mercer felt no triumph, no regret, only peace. The world was still hungry for fortune, but he had found something better. He had found himself. Elias walking down the pier, blending into the crowd, the ocean glimmering behind him. Because in the end, life is not a destination, but a journey. And the richest gold is the kind you carry inside. Elias Mercer's story reminds us that life is a gamble worth taking. He left with nothing but a dream and the courage to chase it. The North tested him, stripped him, and reshaped him, but he never stopped moving forward. Sometimes it's not about the gold you find, but the risks you're willing to take to find yourself. Because in the end, life rewards those who dare to step into the unknown, just like Elias did.